they connect and bloom, a bloom, showing if they connect and bloom.
Welcome to the Bloom Show. This is Sahid Nahim. Pardon the delay. Kate Penn is stuck in a little bit of traffic, and it's completely understood why, because this was extremely last minute. Yes, Sunday and Monday, we're getting people to come on board. So I said, let me jump in just to kind of kill the time and make sure that everybody still hangs out. But thank you, everybody, for joining and continuing to join. And Kate Penn should be on briefly in just the next 5 minutes or so. If not, I'll figure it out, and we'll always figure it out because that's why we go live, because we're not afraid of perfection. It's always about being authentic. Now, just to tell you that this show and this series, the Bloom Alert series, special series of the new Bloom, it's Blooming Alerts series, which is a tariff series, has been amazing in the sense that we've had such great response from such great leaders that have come on board to share their perspective of how they believe it's going to affect their sector, right? So it's been very important to hear from leaders like Joe Don, Augusto Solanos, Eduardo Latorre, Rodrigo Levia, Christine Bolt, and now Kate Penn. We all know Kate Penn. She's the CEO of Society of American Florists. It's been in our industry for so many years. So she has seen and dealt with this, I imagine, not exactly this, but things like this. So to hear from her, but most importantly, to feel free to ask questions, right? Because there may be questions on resources and things we don't cover. So again, the Bloom Show is by the floral community for the floral community with the intention of uniting the floral community and creating a voice for these leaders. So take your time, ask questions, and chime in. And I do want to encourage everybody. It's great that you're here and it's great that you're watching, and I thank you. But it's much more powerful if you share this information with your audience, your friends, your customers, your employees, because this information is very important to understand that we're all in this together. And with information, not only comes education and informed decisions, but also comes unity and empathy. So we ask you to please share, do subscribe, that's always great, and press the alert key. But without further ado, I'm happy to say Kate is in the house. So we're excited to have her in the house. So without further ado, I'm going to invite her on. And don't forget to ask questions. Give Kate a shout out. We all love to know that you're hanging out with us and hearing from us. And feel free to enjoy it. Do enjoy it. Give us
a showing if they connect and bloom, a bloom, showing if they connect and bloom.
Hi, Kate. How are you? Can you hear me? All right. We haven't tested anything out because Kate just showed up. But Kate, I completely understand because it was last minute notice. So thank you so much for joining today, Kate.
Yeah, thanks for your patience and waiting for me to jump on. I appreciate it.
No worries. There was people hanging out like, where's Kate? Where's Kate? So everybody was excited to jump on. And I was surprised not to see you're a great dancer. So I was surprised not to see you dancing behind the scene to the new Bloom Show song.
I love that. I love that show song. It's great. It's so fun. It's a great intro.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's get to the questions. I do respect your time and I appreciate you for joining again. Kate Penn, CEO of Society of American Florists, as we know. Kate's a regular on the show. So let's jump on some questions really quickly. What is SAF hearing from florists and floral import and floral businesses about proposed floral tariffs? And what are the biggest concerns right now? And it's important, Kate, to state that we would love to know what the florists are scared of. What are their pain points so that the wholesalers could address that and importers could address that. So what are you hearing from the florists?
Right. Well, first, I know that everyone can relate to somewhat of a sigh of relief. If we can start off with the good news first, when a few weeks ago, last week when this came through, Canada and Mexico were not part of it. And so that was good, right? That's good news that those two, that they've been given a pass, at least temporarily. We don't know how long that's going to last. And I know that's contingent. We all know that's contingent on them, following through on their the actions they're taking related to the fentanyl crisis. But as far as what we're hearing from florists specifically, well, they're worried because, as we know, we've come off of, 2 to 3 years of prices increasing in the industry due to inflation. After the pandemic, prices kept going up for everybody, for every industry, not just ours. And so a typical conversation around SAF council tables over the last couple of years has been, how do we keep increasing prices? How can we keep doing this? How, we have to increase prices to cover our costs, but how much can we continue to do this? And so that is a concern. And that's probably the number one concern I hear. And then managing, and there's all kinds of thoughts. We've had several conversations with people in the industry about how to manage this. And I'd say that's kind of where we're at now, because when you think about it, as soon as the election was over, we knew that tariffs were going to be happening. We just didn't know exactly when. And so to a certain extent, a lot of people in the industry have been preparing for this for a couple of months. Yeah. And so now the conversations are, different people talking about how they're handling it. And there are a lot of different ways to handle it. We've had some really interesting feedback from all segments in the industry on how to get through this and how to keep moving forward.
Any highlights with those feedbacks, Kate?
Sure, absolutely. In terms of best practices, sort of for people to get through this, some of the things we've heard, be flexible as a buyer and know that sometimes wholesalers might not be able to get some product, but they'll be able to get something else. Be open to substitutions. If you're really trying to hold your margins, be open to substitutions. Also keep in mind that price points are important, to offer a variety of price points. And this is for the retailer, right? Consumers need to see all price points. Some customers, they're not going to be super sensitive to a 10% increase. Others are. And if you can offer a lot of price points, and that means that your regular customers who need to tighten their budgets are going to be able to still buy from you. And so that's what's really important. Don't presume, though, that nobody's going to be able to pay those higher prices, because many, many buyers will. Plan ahead. Really important to be planning ahead. Order as early as possible, because a short turnaround time only limits your supplier's ability to do the research that they need to do in order to find the product that's in your budget. Communication is a huge topic that's come up. Communication is so important between the segments, back and forth from suppliers to their customers, from retailers to their suppliers. Suppliers might be looking at other vendor options, for instance. They might be trying out some new product on you. You need to let them know what you thought about that product from a different vendor. The back and forth communication is really important. Planning out your inventory. Work with hard goods vendors on longer term inventory planning. Yeah. Some suppliers are getting large advance orders. So getting in on that schedule will ensure that your product's going to arrive on time. And then just one more I'll share. And all of these are the kind of things that we're trying to reinforce in everything that we communicate with the industry, because it's really important. But really protect your profit margin. And meaning, let's say if you're an event florist, build contingency plans into your wedding and event contracts so that allows for some renegotiation, just in case, there's increased market prices and because of these tariffs. I was just at our Profit Blast in Providence the other day on Sunday, and I was talking to a couple of retailers who they presumed that, the prices that they communicated to their bride had to stick or have to stick moving forward, if they're planning out a wedding a year ahead. And we had a really good conversation about how they can build that into the contract, that this could be subject to change because of the tariffs. I mean, other segments in the industry are doing that, and retailers need to do that as well. But if the retailers don't safeguard that profit margin, and build it into the pricing, build these increases into the pricing, they're not going to be around long, because that's not a sustainable practice. You can't have your prices increase, your costs increase, and then just absorb it. Maybe you do that here and there occasionally for a certain type of customer, but it's not an ongoing strategy. So those are some of the things that we're hearing that people are doing as they move forward through this.
I'm impressed, Kate. That's great information. Great information, because you covered the gamut from communication to ordering early to protecting your margins. All those things are so important. And again, going to communication, it's so important to trust your wholesaler and to feel as you're a partner right now.
Right.
To make sure to have that flexibility to not buy by variety, buy by color. And little tips like that would really help allow the florists to be more flexible.
And the suppliers in this industry, they're kind of, good, bad, or indifferent. They're used to disruption, right? This is not brand new. This is just kind of part and parcel of being a supplier in the industry. And, when you think about it, there are strikes in other countries, where we're getting our product from. There's social unrest. And so my understanding is that some of our suppliers in the industry, both on the hard goods side and on the fresh side, they actually have people in their operations that are kind of keeping an eye out for this kind of thing. And so they can anticipate them. And now sometimes there's something that catches the entire world by surprise, like the pandemic, or, a couple years ago when that container ship blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days. I think that was during the pandemic. 2021. You can't anticipate that kind of thing. But the reality is that on the hard goods supply thing, most of your suppliers are keeping a couple months of inventory on hand. And so they're equipped to a certain extent to kind of shift things around, and they have backup sources. And they know they have to maintain a really diverse supply chain on the hard goods piece. So our suppliers in our industry, they know what they're doing, and they know that they're doing everything they can. But all of those things like communicating and ordering early, all of that's it's just going to help you meet your budget goals.
Yep, 100%. So we have a quick question here. Are new tariffs going to be beneficial for local growers in the U.S.? I have some input there, but if you have anything, it'd be great.
Yeah, we're going to see how that plays out, because there certainly are the number, we know there are a growing number of local growers, right? Many of much of the growth among U.S. growers is coming from small farms, but the numbers are huge. I think in 2016 or 2017, there were maybe 1,600 growers pre-COVID, let's say. Several years prior to COVID, there were around 1,600, 1,500, 1,600 U.S. cut flower growers. I'm talking about, not plants. There's, a lot of plant growers in this country, but by, I think it was 2022 or 2023, that number had literally doubled to 3,000. And I might be off on the years, but there are more than 3,000 cut flower growers and probably even more than that. These are the number of cut flower growers that are members of the Association of Specially Cut Flower Growers. And so they've seen a tremendous increase. And granted, as I said, many of those are small, and some are kind of even in the hobbyist category. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there is a bigger footprint for these small growers. And so how this could play out, first, some of these growers are really good at doing outreach to wholesalers. They're not just going to farmers markets. Some of them are really tuned into, getting their product out there through the chain of distribution, whether if they have a local wholesaler, so they're really trying to move product through that, or they're just going direct to event planners and retailers. And some aren't quite doing that yet. I could see how, with increased demand, if retailers are wanting to really step up their game locally, which many are wanting to do that anyway, that these growers may put themselves in a better position of being able to meet that supply. Now, would it be able to replace the 85% of the supply that we get from other countries? No, but it certainly could help. And we know the consumer's interested in local product. And so the more we can do that, the better. Now, will this help our bigger growers, our bigger cut flower growers that are able to ship nationally? I mean, I think that remains to be seen. Hopefully it will. Hopefully it will mean a good thing for that. But I also think we need to have some policy changes in this country in order to help U.S. growers operate more profitably as well. There needs to be immigration reform.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, of course. And you do so much work for that. I look forward. I want to jump into the next question. So let's hold off on that real quick. But we have another question here. Any other ideas or resources on becoming more efficient for retailers? Figured if we knew how to cut waste from another area, it can help while tariffs are around, and to be better afterwards. Thank you, Obrigado.
Oh, there's so much on efficiency that what we hear from consultants that are advising florists and directly from the florists themselves is that the two areas in their business where they're seeing the highest costs, where you can really chip away at your profit margin in the biggest way, is labor. So how much you're spending on labor, and then your cost of goods, obviously, which is what we're talking about here with the tariffs. So being a real stickler for, let's say, just on the cost of goods piece, looking at the cost of your fresh product and supplies, being a real stickler for pricing product. Every stem that goes into arrangements counts. And I know it just sounds like a broken record, because anytime this comes up, this is what people say. You should be counting, pricing out every single stem that goes in arrangement. Don't overstuff arrangements. But it's more important now than ever. And so ideally, you've got those systems in place with your designers, whoever's designing it, where it's really clear on what those prices are and then what the retail price should be for the customers. So protecting your cost of goods is very important. And then on the labor side, it's very important to really look at what you're spending on labor. And if you can afford to have, if you're staffing in a way that's truly profitable. And we really saw retailers do more what we call almost like surgical scheduling during COVID rather, when they lost a lot of staff. They had to stay home. There were people staying home. They were maybe homeschooling their kids. They were not in person working in the shop. And so a lot of retailers were really light on staff, and they were operating on a skeleton staff. And some retailers, they got really good at figuring out how to keep staying operational with fewer staff. And as we kind of moved out of the pandemic, that became their new reality. Even though they had access to more staff, they still really held on to those practices of staffing very strategically. We have a lot more detail on this. If it's helpful, I could send you a link. 100%. I don't know if that needs to be done during the show. I can try and see if someone can send a link add a couple of pieces related to labor specifically, if that's helpful. I can see if someone can send me a link while we're here.
If anybody's interested, one, put your email on the comments, and two, you could also email connect@NewBloom Solutions, ask for it, and Kate will send it to us, and we'll send it directly to you.
Absolutely.
And if you want to add your email, even better, and we can make sure to send it to you. So thanks for offering that, Kate.
Yeah, great question. And we have some good resources there that
I know,
will help, and we'll kind of give you some numbers to shoot for, some percentages to shoot for on what's a healthy labor percentage, what's a healthy cost of goods percentage.
Perfect. And that's what SAF is amazing at, is offering those resources for their members. So we look forward to having those resources if we could share it. Thank you, Kate. So that's why I'd asked you let's hold off on the question, because I know you do so much with SAF CAD, trying to change policy and improve the situation for either U.S. growers or Ecuador, Colombia, and everybody involved. So is SAF working to educate, or how? I'm not going to ask is, because I know they are, but how is SAF working to educate policymakers or advocate on behalf of the floral industry as a whole, and what steps are being taken? And I'm going to add another part. How can the community support?
Yeah, yes. Thank you for that question, because it is important, and it takes both SAF's efforts and our floral community. So first, for our part, yes, we are conveying the industry's challenges with these tariffs. We're sharing information and data about how these tariffs are impacting our industry, and we're sharing that with different parts of the administration, the Department of Congress, the U.S. Trade Representative as well, and the National Economic Council. And that is a body that advises the president on domestic and international economic issues. And what we're conveying is, first, that our industry is really reliant on product from other countries, and other countries that have not, where the products come in, with either zero tariffs or a very low tariff. And we emphasize too that our industry is made up of small businesses and that are operating on tight margins. It's a penny's business, as we say. And so that's really what we're emphasizing. And we're also talking about in these communications and conversations, we're also talking about situations where these new duties have been imposed on some countries where there's actually a trade surplus, not a deficit, like Colombia, the Netherlands, Chile, Peru. And so these are the conversations we're having, and that's happening, every day. Like, that's kind of this ongoing effort. We also, a lot of what I just mentioned relates to the fresh product. As far as supplies, and really we're talking about China primarily, we're going to petition for an exemption for the floral industry from certain supplies. Glassware, plastic, maybe baskets as well. And we're just going to ask for that specific exemption. It's a pretty tough ask to say, we don't get rid of the tariffs on China. It's probably not going to happen. Okay. And so you have to save your political capital, if you will, for something where you might be able to have some benefit. And so we're going to approach it, instead of saying no tariffs on Chinese product. We're going to do it more like as a petition and try and get an exemption for our industry. And the IFPA, the International Fresh Produce Association, which also represents the floral industry, on the mass market supermarket industry, they're doing the same thing. They are also asking for exemptions. Hopefully that will be effective. We also really need our industry to step up. And we sent a communication out to folks last week that talked about this and gave heads up that we're going to be sending talking points and a template for calling your members of Congress or writing to your members of Congress and letting them know how you feel about this and how this is impacting your business. This kind of thing counts. I'm not sure how many people realize that every time a congressional office gets a letter or a phone call or a voicemail, it gets logged in a system. And that member of Congress is looking to see, well, how many people wrote in about this and what did they say about it? And so it's really important that we make sure our legislators hear directly from us and from you, not just from SAF, but from individual business owners about how this affects you. And we're making this easy. The template is, kind of maps out what you can write, and you can fill in if you have a personal anecdote you want to share about specifically the cost of this to your business. You can do that. But we encourage everyone to take advantage of that. And we're going to be putting that out in a communication in the next day or so. And we'll have it on our website too, to make it easy for the industry to do that.
And I do want to take a moment to maybe inspire people to learn more about Society of American Florists Congressional Action Day, because it is an enriching opportunity and an experience to attend Congressional Action Day. Can you share a little bit about Congressional Action Day? Because again, Cape Penn and SAF are not just working today because something happened. They're even working before it happened. So can you please share a little bit about Congressional Action Day for people that may not be familiar with it?
Yes, absolutely. So we just held it a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and we had about 50 members of our industry left their businesses for a couple of days to come to Washington, D.C. to basically go up to Capitol Hill, meet with their members of Congress, congressional offices to talk about the key issues that we're advocating for right now. And tariffs, this tariff situation, which is ever evolving, was definitely one of the issues. So we conveyed those messages that I just talked about in these meetings. And a couple of the other issues that we talked about immigration reform, the need for immigration reform, the importance of agricultural labor to our industry. It's critical. And there's been no movement on immigration reform, no solution that's working. And there has to be, it's needed in order for growers, and not just in our industry. We're not the only ones asking for this. It's many, many agriculture industries that are asking for this. So that was one of our key messages to get across. We also talked about the importance of research funding. When you think about, you might be conscious of the fact that, let's say, hydrangea today lasts much longer than it did 10 years ago, or all kinds of other varieties. Maybe they open more, or there's more fragrance, or there's better color.
Bigger blooms.
They last longer. All of that is because of research. And there's this great research partnership that's industry government partnership called the Floriculture Nursery Research Initiative. And that's one of the things that we really advocate for more money for. So we can keep getting that research that improves our products. And specifically moving forward, the kind of research we're hoping to see funded are, research into growing crops when the climate is changing so much, like growing crops in a drought. Drought resistant crops, or growing crops when there's tons of rain, because it's changing everywhere. Pest and disease resistance, using mechanization more in order to get a higher yield, because that addresses the labor issue, right?
Of course.
So that's what that kind of research covers, and that's what we advocate for. And then the one other issue, and this is something we added actually at the last minute going into this year's Congressional Action Days. You're familiar probably with DOGE, right? The effort to bring efficiency to the government. And
there's been some changes now, though, so I wonder.
Right. Well, we had gotten wind that there could be some cuts to USDA and specifically to APHIS. And APHIS is the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, and it basically is the entity within USDA that keeps plants with pets that have a pest infestation or a disease infestation that has never been introduced in the United States before, to make sure that stays out of the United States. So all the flowers that move through Miami, and really every port of entry, they go through Customs and Border Patrol. And if the CBP sees a bug or a disease, it goes right to APHIS inspectors, and they look at it to see if that's okay to let it in or not. And you can imagine, because it's perishable product, that process needs to move pretty quickly. And so you need people who know what they're doing, and you need a lot of them, or a certain number of them.
Yep.
And so,
especially for the holidays, if you imagine.
Right, for the holidays, you can only imagine the backlog. And so if they're cutting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from APHIS, that could really impact the flow of product through those ports. So we wanted to make congressional offices aware of that. We're still waiting to hear what those, cuts could be, and SAF will continue communicating on the issue. But that was the other issue we talked about. But it is a great event, and I know you've enjoyed it, and it's been so great to have you there for it. It's not only important for our industry, because it puts a spotlight on our industry.
Yep.
In these meetings, I'm sure you've seen it, Sahid, where you see light bulbs going off in these congressional staffers.
Really cool.
What? Your industry's that big? You do this, you do that. You need that. That's important to you. Light bulbs go off. They hear it. They record it. It's really important, but it's also fun, right? Like
It's rewarding. It's a very rewarding because you're working your tail off because you're walking the halls all day. You're sitting there doing training but it's very rewarding as you're doing something, giving back to the industry, giving back to the community and affecting your future. So I do encourage everybody, if you're in that area, do it, go check it out, and make sure to reach out to Kate to find out more, because it's not only a lot of fun, great networking, but it's rewarding. It's really rewarding, in my opinion. So Arnold is chiming in. He's been watching this whole week, or these couple of days. Thank you, Kate and Sahid, for the insight. Thank you, Arnold, for watching. And then we also have Bono that says, thank you. Just submitted my request to become a member. That's what we're here for. Definitely know this is a time to pour on marketing community engagement. That's awesome. And great resources, Armando. And that's what we love to do, is connect you to these resources and associations. So thank you, because it makes us continue to do what we do here at the Bloom Show. But that's awesome. And keep the questions coming, guys. Let me see. I think I have one last question for you. Yes. So what message would you share for floral professionals right now to help them prepare, stay informed, and stay united through these changes?
I think the most important thing right now, the most important message is that communication piece. And I say this because during SAF's recent meetings, prior to Congressional Action Days, we have our council meetings. Everything SAF does is driven by our councils and our board of directors. And so we had our council meetings, and we did this, after that, we did this sort of exercise at the very beginning of Congressional Action Days with all of our council members and all the Congressional Action Days attendees. And we had a question on every table that we asked them to answer at their tables and then report out. And the question was, how can the other segments in the industry, segments other than yours, help you be more successful? At these tables, there was a mix of retailers, wholesalers, and growers, right? But so the idea was to hear from different segments, like me as a grower, what do I need the retailers to understand about my business in order to help me, or the wholesalers in order to help me be more successful? And then the same thing for wholesalers and retailers. And what was so interesting, so they worked on this for, about a half hour, and then we had lunch. And then afterwards, we asked people, someone at each table, to stand up and report out what they came up with. And at every single table, I mean, there were multiple ideas, but the one thread at every single table was communication. It was like, I just need to understand more, what your needs are, or I need to hear, what you need to plan ahead, or I need to know what your struggles are, or it was amazing. And so I would say that that's the most important thing. You're not in this alone. You do not have to be alone in this industry. There are so many different places that you can virtually, like this, that you can get on and communicate with other people, with your peers, keep the open communication with your suppliers and your customers. Take advantage of these forums and keep talking, and definitely keep that communication though with your customers and suppliers. I think that's what's most important.
Very important. I also want to add is share, right? Communication is about sharing. So do share information you find with your peers, with other circles that you're in. So just like SAF, where she's going to share with us a great resource. Now, you can keep it for yourself, or you can do something more powerful and share it with others and keep that going, right? So I really, really want to encourage that as well. Kate, any final words?
I would say a final word is, it's really good for your customer audiences to always keep it positive. And you might feel really like you're struggling and you're frustrated with what's going on in our industry, but it's good to just keep that part within the industry. It's okay to complain to your peers, but when it comes to the consumers, the people who we want to feel confident about buying flowers, and keep it positive. And you can defend if your prices had to go up 10%, you can explain that. You can say, I want to be here for every occasion and non-occasion that you have for the rest of your life. And that's why I have to cover my costs in that. I want to stay in this community and be here for our community because florists provide such an incredible and important service for our community. So I think that would be my final word. Keep it positive for our consumer audiences.
And again, that's tying it into our theme of today is communication, right? So it's communicating, even as putting a clause in your agreement saying prices may change. Disclaimers. Right. I love disclaimers, right? Because a disclaimer allows for an opportunity to be able to go back and change something if a tariff comes in or shipping charges increase. So being very transparent and authentic with your customers to communicate them with what you're going through so they understand what to expect. So very well said, Kate. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your time. Sorry for the voice. I've been talking a lot these couple of days. So thank you again for coming in such short notice. And it's always awesome to have you on board.
Thank you for having me and for thinking of SF. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for having these really important conversations. We appreciate what you're doing, Sahid.
Thank you so much. And we got one other question here. Thanks, Kate, for many valuable insights. All the best to you and SAF in navigating these new changes. Thanks, Sahid, for this excellent series and conversation. Thank you.
Sylvie.
Thank you, Sylvie. So again, Kate, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, and I'll wait for that link, Kate, just to make sure if anybody reaches out.
Oh, yes.
For that information, sure. Please. Thank you, Kate. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So awesome. As always, Kate is a true resource, a great resource of information. And really, I encourage you all to plug into SAF. It's not only for florists. We've seen wholesalers getting involved in different companies, even growers getting involved. So it really is a great association that's starting to embrace everyone. So when you go to SAF CAD, you meet some incredible people and get to network and build friendships and relationships with some incredible people. But that's a great example of what SAF, Society of American Florists, actually, I believe it's the oldest or the second oldest association in the country, which is really cool. I'm a geek when it comes to history, so it's really cool. And I found a cool article some years ago, written many years ago about them. But anyhow, that's the geek in me talking. But really thank you to Kate. And what my takeaway was is something that we encourage to innovate, connect, and bloom is communication. It is so important to continue to network and believe and communicate and connect with each other throughout these situations, but not just when these things happen, right? It is important to always be proactive in keeping that channel of communication. So when those things happen and these things happen, we already have that channel of communication. We've built that trust, we've built that resource, and we know it's available to us. Just like the Bloom Show is available for the floral community, by the floral community. So tomorrow, I believe we are going to have IFPA. And then on Monday, we're going to have Charlie Hall as well. So do tune in. I don't have the exact times. I think Charlie Hall will be 12, and we're working with IFPA to discuss. And we also might have a Dutch representative as well to discuss more. And then on Tuesday or something or so, we're going to write a whole recap blog. So do keep an eye out for the recap blog. And again, thank you to Kate for her time, and thank you all for chiming in and really supporting this. And please, again, share, because without sharing, we break the communication. So do share this. All you do is copy and paste the URL and share it with your friends, family, whoever is involved in the flower industry, and you find this to be of important information for them and helpful. So thank you again. See you soon. Take care.
The bloom, showing if they connect them blue.